What if I told you that tonight? Yes, tonight, you could fall into deeper sleep within minutes, not hours, by using just 3 grams of something your body already understands. And what if I told you this same simple step could calm your stress hormone, lower nighttime anxiety, reduce racing thoughts, and help you wake up actually feeling restored instead of drained? Most people spend years blaming their mattress, their schedule, their phone, their age, but the real reason you're not sleeping deeply might be something much more biochemical. Today I'm going to show you how 3 grams can help balance cortisol and unlock deeper sleep naturally, and why this works so fast for so many people. Now let's start with the real problem. It's not that you can't sleep, it's that your body doesn't feel safe enough to sleep deeply. There's a difference. You might fall asleep, but then you wake up at 2:13 a.m. or 3:40 a.m. or right before your alarm, feeling like you ran a marathon in your dreams. That's not random. That's cortisol. Cortisol is not the enemy. It's actually essential. It helps you wake up in the morning. It gives you energy. It regulates blood pressure. It controls inflammation. But the issue today isn't cortisol itself. The issue is timing. Cortisol is supposed to be high in the morning and low at night. But for many people, it's flipped. It stays elevated at night when it should be quiet. And when cortisol is high at night, your brain stays alert. Even if you're exhausted, your nervous system stays slightly on. And this is where 3 grams come in. When I say 3 grams, I'm talking about a very specific amount because dosage matters. Too little and you don't notice much. Too much and you might feel off. But 3 grams hits a physiological sweet spot for most adults when we're talking about glycine. Yes, glycine. An amino acid, simple, affordable, not trendy, but incredibly powerful. Glycine is one of the most overlooked sleep-supporting nutrients in modern health. It's a building block of collagen. It supports detox pathways. It supports the nervous system. But what most people don't realize is that glycine has a unique ability to calm the brain and help regulate cortisol rhythms. Here's what happens. When you take about 3 grams of glycine before bed, it starts interacting with receptors in your brain that are involved in relaxation. Glycine acts as an inhibitory neurotransmitter in certain areas of the central nervous system. That means it helps quiet overactive signals. It gently lowers core body temperature. And lowering body temperature is one of the key triggers that tells your brain it's time to sleep deeply. But it gets even more interesting. Studies have shown that glycine before bed can improve subjective sleep quality and reduce next-day fatigue. That's huge, because deep sleep isn't just about duration. It's about how restorative it is. Deep sleep is when growth hormone is released. It's when your brain clears metabolic waste. It's when your muscles repair. It's when your immune system recalibrates. Now let's connect this to cortisol. When you're stressed all day, your hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, also called the HPA axis, stays active. Emails, financial stress, relationship tension, late night scrolling, caffeine that lingers too long, it all keeps that system stimulated. By the time you get into bed, your body might be tired, but your stress circuitry is still humming. Glycine helps dampen that. It doesn't sedate you like a sleeping pill. It doesn't knock you out. Instead, it reduces the hyper-alert state that cortisol can create at night. That's why some people report feeling calmer within minutes. It's not magic. It's neurochemistry. Now, I want to be clear about something. This isn't about suppressing cortisol into the ground. That's not healthy. Cortisol needs to follow a rhythm. The goal is rhythm restoration, morning up, night down. When you support that natural wave instead of fighting it, sleep becomes easier. There's another layer here most people don't think about. Blood sugar stability. One reason cortisol spikes at night is because your blood sugar drops too low while you're sleeping. When that happens, your body releases cortisol to bring glucose back up. That can wake you up suddenly with a racing heart. Glycine has been shown to support better glucose regulation in some individuals. That alone can reduce those 3 a.m. wake-ups. Now imagine this. Instead of lying in bed staring at the ceiling, your body gently transitions into deeper stages of sleep. Stage 3 sleep, slow wave sleep. That's the phase associated with real restoration. That's the phase that declines with age. That's the phase many people are missing. Deep sleep isn't just about feeling rested, it's about long-term health. Poor deep sleep is associated with increased inflammation, impaired memory, insulin resistance, and yes, higher chronic cortisol levels. It becomes a vicious cycle. High stress reduces deep sleep. Poor deep sleep increases stress. yet you feel wired and tired at the same time. Breaking that cycle doesn't always require complicated biohacks. Sometimes it requires giving the body a signal it recognizes. Now let's talk about how to actually use 3 grams correctly. 3 grams is typically about 3/4 of a teaspoon of glycine powder, depending on the brand. Most people take it about 30 to 60 minutes before bed. You can mix it in warm water, herbal tea, or even just plain water. Glycine tastes slightly sweet, which makes it easy to take. Within about 20 to 30 minutes, many people report feeling a subtle shift, not sedation, not grogginess, just a softening, a slowing down of mental chatter. That's your nervous system moving toward parasympathetic dominance, rest and digest mode. But here's the key. Glycine works best when paired with good sleep hygiene. If you're blasting bright blue light into your eyes at midnight, scrolling social media while stressed, drinking caffeine at 6 p.m., and expecting 3 grams to override all of that, you're asking too much of one amino acid. Think of glycine as a nudge. It enhances the signals you're already sending your body. Dim lights at night, cool room temperature, consistent sleep schedule, lower late-night stimulation. When you combine those habits with targeted nutritional support, the effect becomes stronger. There's also a calming effect glycine has on the mind that's important for people dealing with anxiety. High nighttime cortisol often feels like racing thoughts, overthinking conversations, planning tomorrow's tasks, replaying past mistakes. Glycine can reduce that mental edge. And here's something else fascinating. Glycine supports collagen production. Why does that matter for sleep? Because collagen provides structural support to tissues, including joints and connective tissue. When your body is repairing at night, having adequate amino acids available can support recovery. Better recovery can translate to better overall sleep depth over time. Now let's address safety. For most healthy adults, 3 grams of glycine is considered very safe. It's an amino acid your body already uses. However, if you're on medication, pregnant, nursing, or have a medical condition, it's always wise to talk to your healthcare provider first. Supplements are tools, not replacements for medical care. What about side effects? At moderate doses like 3 grams, side effects are uncommon. Some people may experience mild digestive discomfort if they take too much too quickly. That's why sticking to the 3-gram range is smart. Now here's something powerful. Many people try melatonin first. And melatonin can be helpful in certain situations, especially for jet lag or circadian rhythm shifts. But melatonin is a hormone. Glycine is a nutrient. Supporting your nervous system with amino acids often feels more natural and less disruptive for some people long term. Deep sleep is when your glymphatic system becomes active. This is the brain's waste clearance system. It literally flushes out metabolic byproducts that accumulate during the day. When deep sleep is impaired, that cleanup process suffers. Over time, that can affect cognitive clarity and mood. So when 3 grams help you access deeper sleep cycles more consistently, you're not just improving tonight, you're investing in long-term brain health. And here's another benefit people notice. Better temperature regulation. Glycine helps reduce core body temperature slightly, which mimics the body's natural sleep initiation process. That drop in temperature is part of why we sleep better in cooler environments. Glycine enhances that internal shift. If you're someone who wakes up feeling hot or restless, this mechanism may be especially helpful. Now let's zoom out. Why are so many people struggling with cortisol imbalance in the first place? Chronic stress, artificial lighting, constant notifications, lack of natural light exposure in the morning, overtraining, undereating, poor boundaries, trauma. It's not just one thing, it's the cumulative load. We can't eliminate stress completely, but we can buffer its impact. We can create physiological anchors that bring the nervous system back to baseline. Imagine ending your day intentionally. You turn down the lights. You put your phone away. You mix 3 grams into warm tea. You take slow breaths. Within minutes, your body starts to feel heavier in a good way. Your mind feels less sharp-edged. You slip into sleep instead of fighting for it. And you wake up before your alarm feeling clearer. That's the goal. Some people notice results the first night. Others take a few nights as their system adjusts. Consistency matters. Sleep is rhythmic. The body loves patterns. And here's a subtle but important point. Deep sleep isn't about being unconscious. It's about synchronized brain waves, slow waves, coherent rhythms. Glycine supports inhibitory signaling, which can help the brain enter those synchronized states more efficiently. If you've been living in fight or flight mode for years, your brain may need gentle support to remember how to power down. 3 grams, not 10, not 20. More is not better. In fact, too much glycine can sometimes feel stimulating in certain individuals because neurotransmitter systems are complex. That's why the 3-gram range is so interesting. It appears to be enough to influence sleep quality without overwhelming the system. Now, I want you to think about how many things people try for sleep. Expensive gadgets, blue light blocking glasses, white noise machines, weighted blankets, prescription sedatives, alcohol, and yet the foundation is biochemical balance. When cortisol is elevated at night, your heart rate stays slightly elevated, your brain stays vigilant, your muscles remain a bit tense. Glycine helps ease that tension. There's also emerging evidence that glycine may support healthy inflammatory balance. Chronic inflammation can disrupt sleep architecture, so by calming both the nervous system and potentially modulating inflammation, glycine creates a more sleep-friendly internal environment. But remember, supplements amplify lifestyle. They don't override chaos. If you drink coffee late, try cutting it off at least 8 hours before bed. If you scroll in bed, move your phone out of reach. If you're under eating protein during the day, correct that. Amino acid balance matters. Now let's talk about one more mechanism, GABA. Glycine interacts with GABAergic systems in the brain. GABA is your primary inhibitory neurotransmitter. It's like the brake pedal for your nervous system. When GABA activity is low, anxiety rises. When GABA signaling is supported, calm increases. Glycine isn't the same as GABA, but it supports inhibitory tone in complementary ways. This is why people often describe the effect as calming but clear. If you've been stuck in shallow sleep for years, it may take more than one intervention. But starting with 3 grams is simple, it's affordable, it's accessible. Tonight, instead of expecting sleep to happen, create the conditions for it. Lower the lights, lower the stimulation, lower the internal stress signal, and gently support your neurochemistry. Deep sleep changes everything. It changes how you respond to stress the next day. It changes hunger hormones. It changes motivation. It changes resilience. Cortisol balanced at night doesn't mean cortisol suppressed. It means cortisol rhythmic. So if you're tired of waking up wired at 3 a.m., if you're tired of feeling exhausted but unable to switch off, if you're tired of shallow, broken sleep, consider the possibility that your body isn't broken. It might just need the right signal. 3 grams. 30 minutes before bed. Consistency. Support your nervous system instead of fighting it. And tonight, pay attention. Notice how your body feels. Notice how quickly your thoughts slow down. Notice whether you wake up less during the night. Sometimes the smallest shifts create the biggest transformations. Sleep isn't a luxury, it's the foundation. And sometimes the path to deeper sleep isn't complicated. It's biochemical alignment. If this resonated with you, start tonight. Give your body the signal it's been waiting for. Most people think their 2 to 4 a.m. wake-ups are random. They assume it's stress, aging, hormones, or just bad sleep. But one of the most overlooked causes of those sudden early morning awakenings is unstable blood sugar during the night. And once you understand how tightly your blood sugar is connected to cortisol, everything starts to make sense. When you fall asleep, your body doesn't shut off. It shifts into a different metabolic mode. During the first part of the night, especially in deep sleep, your body focuses on repair. Growth hormone rises, tissues rebuild, the brain clears waste, energy demand changes. You're not eating, so your body must maintain stable blood glucose internally. That stability is critical because your brain depends heavily on glucose. If levels drop too low, your body interprets that as a threat. And when the body senses a threat, even a subtle one like falling glucose, it activates the stress response. Cortisol is one of the primary hormones involved in maintaining blood sugar. Along with glucagon and adrenaline, cortisol helps increase glucose availability by signaling the liver to release stored glucose and by stimulating gluconeogenesis, the creation of new glucose from amino acids and other substrates. This is protective. It keeps your brain supplied with fuel. But here's the issue. If blood sugar dips too far during the night, cortisol can surge abruptly to compensate. That surge can wake you up. If you've ever jolted awake around 3 a.m. with a racing heart, anxious thoughts, or a sudden sense of alertness, that may not be psychological. It may be biochemical. Your body could be responding to a drop in blood glucose and activating cortisol to stabilize you. To understand this better, imagine your blood sugar as a steady flame that needs to stay within a narrow range. Too high, and you experience damage over time. Too low, and the body sounds an alarm. During the day, you eat meals and snacks so that flame is refueled regularly. At night, you rely on stored glycogen in the liver to maintain that flame. If your glycogen reserves are low when you go to bed, or if your metabolic regulation is impaired, the flame can flicker. When glycogen stores deplete in the middle of the night, the body must act quickly. Cortisol rises to mobilize energy. Adrenaline may rise as well. These hormones increase heart rate and stimulate alertness. They are not subtle. Even a modest spike can pull you out of deep sleep into lighter stages or full wakefulness. This is why some people fall asleep easily but wake up consistently between 2 and 4 a.m. The timing matters. In the early part of the night, deep sleep dominates and cortisol is naturally low. As the night progresses, REM sleep increases and cortisol gradually begins to rise in preparation for morning. But if blood sugar drops prematurely, cortisol may spike earlier than it should. That spike interrupts the architecture of sleep. One major factor influencing nighttime blood sugar stability is what you eat and when you eat it. If you consume a very high sugar or high refined carbohydrate dinner, you may experience a rapid rise in blood glucose followed by a significant insulin response. Insulin lowers blood sugar by moving glucose into cells. In some individuals, especially those with insulin sensitivity fluctuations, this can overshoot, leading to a reactive dip later in the night. On the other hand, if you eat too little, especially too little protein or healthy fat, you may go to bed with insufficient glycogen stores. Your liver stores glycogen from carbohydrates you eat during the day. If intake has been chronically low, or if you've exercised intensely without replenishing, those stores may not last through the night. Low carbohydrate diets can be beneficial for some people metabolically, but in others, especially those under chronic stress, very low carbohydrate intake can make nighttime dips more likely. The body becomes more reliant on stress hormones to maintain glucose. If you're already running high cortisol during the day, adding nighttime hypoglycemia can create a pattern of repeated awakenings. Stress compounds the issue. Chronic stress increases baseline cortisol levels and can impair insulin sensitivity. When cells don't respond properly to insulin, blood sugar regulation becomes erratic. You might experience higher spikes after meals and deeper drops afterward. This roller coaster can continue into the night. Alcohol is another common contributor. Many people think alcohol helps them sleep because it can make them feel drowsy initially, but alcohol disrupts glucose regulation. It inhibits gluconeogenesis in the liver. Several hours after drinking, blood sugar may drop, especially if alcohol was consumed without adequate food. This can trigger a cortisol surge in the early morning hours, fragmenting sleep. Now consider the person who skips dinner or eats very lightly, then goes to bed after a stressful day. Glycogen stores may already be low. The brain still needs glucose overnight. Around 2 or 3 a.m. levels dip. The body senses danger. Cortisol rises. The person wakes up, mind racing, unable to fall back asleep easily. They may think it's anxiety about life. In reality, the anxiety could be secondary to a metabolic stress response. There's also the role of insulin resistance. In individuals with insulin resistance, cells don't efficiently take up glucose. The pancreas compensates by releasing more insulin. Over time, this dysregulation can lead to greater volatility in blood sugar. During the night, that volatility may show up as alternating periods of relative hyperglycemia and hypoglycemia. The body's correction mechanisms involve stress hormones. Repeated nighttime cortisol spikes create a pattern. Over time, the brain begins to anticipate waking at that hour. Sleep becomes lighter around that window. Even small fluctuations in glucose can then trigger awakening more easily because the system is primed for it. Another factor is late-night exercise. Intense exercise depletes glycogen stores. If you train hard in the evening and do not adequately refuel, your body may enter sleep with diminished reserves. While exercise is beneficial for metabolic health, timing and recovery matter. Under-recovery can increase nighttime cortisol as the body attempts to maintain energy balance. Let's talk about protein. Protein provides amino acids, some of which can be converted into glucose if needed. A dinner that includes adequate protein can support more stable blood sugar overnight. When protein is too low and carbohydrates are either too high or too low, instability becomes more likely. Fiber also plays a role. Fiber slows glucose absorption, leading to steadier blood sugar responses after meals. If your dinner consists of refined carbohydrates with little fiber, you're more likely to experience rapid spikes and drops. There's also the concept of hepatic insulin sensitivity. The liver is central to nighttime glucose regulation. It releases glucose between meals and during sleep. If the liver becomes insulin resistant, its glucose output may become dysregulated. In some cases, it may release too much glucose early in the night, leading to higher insulin levels, followed by a later drop. In others, it may fail to release adequate glucose at the right time, prompting cortisol activation. Hormonal shifts with aging can exacerbate this. As people get older, insulin sensitivity may decline. Growth hormone patterns change. Sleep architecture shifts toward lighter sleep. The combination of metabolic changes and altered sleep cycles makes early morning awakenings more common. For women, hormonal transitions such as perimenopause can influence both insulin sensitivity and cortisol dynamics. Fluctuations in estrogen and progesterone affect glucose regulation and stress responses. Progesterone has calming effects on the nervous system, and when levels decline, nighttime awakenings can become more frequent. If blood sugar instability is layered on top of that, cortisol spikes become more likely. Caffeine is another piece. Even if consumed earlier in the day, caffeine can influence blood sugar and cortisol patterns. Caffeine increases cortisol acutely and can reduce insulin sensitivity in some individuals. If caffeine intake is high or consumed late, nighttime glucose regulation may be less stable. The body prefers predictability. Consistent meal timing supports consistent insulin and glucose rhythms. Erratic eating patterns, frequent fasting without adaptation, or highly variable caloric intake can disrupt these rhythms. For some people, intermittent fasting works well. For others, especially those with high stress loads, it can increase nighttime cortisol due to extended fasting windows. When blood sugar drops, symptoms can include sweating, trembling, heart palpitations, and anxiety. At night, you may not consciously recognize these as hypoglycemia. You simply wake up feeling uneasy or alert. Sometimes you'll feel hungry, sometimes not. But the underlying trigger can be the same. The brain is particularly sensitive to glucose changes. Even small decreases can activate the hypothalamus, which then signals the pituitary and adrenal glands to increase cortisol. This cascade happens quickly. It's designed for survival. But in the context of modern life, repeated activation during sleep becomes disruptive. Over time, chronic sleep fragmentation raises baseline cortisol levels during the day. This can worsen insulin resistance, creating a feedback loop. Poor sleep increases metabolic dysfunction. Metabolic dysfunction increases nighttime awakenings. Breaking this cycle requires stabilizing blood sugar before and during sleep. That often means evaluating dinner composition. Including a balance of complex carbohydrates, protein, and healthy fats can provide sustained glucose release. Avoiding large sugar loads late at night reduces the risk of reactive drops. Some individuals find that a small, balanced snack before bed helps prevent 2 to 4 a.m. awakenings. This might include protein and a small amount of complex carbohydrate. The goal is not to overeat, but to ensure adequate glycogen support. Electrolyte balance also matters. Dehydration can influence cortisol and stress responses. Adequate mineral intake supports adrenal function and glucose regulation. Stress management during the day is foundational. High daytime cortisol can lead to greater volatility at night. Practices that lower baseline stress can indirectly stabilize nighttime blood sugar by improving insulin sensitivity and reducing overactivation of the HPA axis. Sleep timing itself affects glucose metabolism. Going to bed very late can disrupt circadian rhythms that regulate insulin sensitivity. The body processes glucose differently at night compared to earlier in the day. Late heavy meals can impair glucose control and increase nighttime disturbances. Circadian biology plays a crucial role. Cortisol follows a diurnal rhythm, lowest around midnight and rising toward morning. If blood sugar dips around 2 a.m., the natural upward drift of cortisol can be exaggerated into a spike. Maintaining stable glucose smooths that curve rather than amplifying it. People who track their glucose with continuous monitors often notice patterns of nocturnal dips preceding awakenings. This real-time data highlights how tightly sleep and glucose are intertwined. Improving muscle mass can also support better glucose regulation. Skeletal muscle is a major site of glucose disposal. Resistance training improves insulin sensitivity, reducing volatility. Gut health influences glucose metabolism as well. The microbiome affects how carbohydrates are processed and how insulin responds. Dysbiosis may contribute to instability. Chronic inflammation impairs insulin signaling. Addressing inflammatory drivers through nutrition and lifestyle can indirectly reduce nighttime cortisol spikes. Medication can play a role. Certain drugs influence glucose levels overnight. Anyone experiencing persistent awakenings should consider discussing medication timing and effects with a healthcare professional. The key concept is that the body does not wake you randomly. It wakes you for a reason. Often that reason is a perceived threat. A drop in glucose qualifies as a threat from a biological standpoint. Stabilizing blood sugar overnight reduces the need for emergency cortisol release. When cortisol stays low and gradual until its natural pre-wake rise, sleep remains deeper and more continuous. Restorative sleep then improves insulin sensitivity the next day. Better insulin sensitivity improves nighttime stability the following night. A positive cycle can replace the negative one. Understanding this connection shifts the focus away from blaming insomnia purely on psychological stress. Metabolic stress is equally powerful. When addressed, many early morning awakenings diminish without sedatives. The goal is metabolic calm, stable fuel supply, predictable rhythms, reduced alarms. When the body trusts that energy is sufficient, it allows deeper surrender into sleep. And in that stability, the 2-4 a.m. cortisol spike loses its trigger, the nervous system remains quiet, and the night unfolds without interruption.